So, when I make the adventuretime analysis series, I do prefer that I go through the reoccurring side characters and slowly build up to the main characters as I go along. But I want to do one a little earlier and do BMO. Now, this might be controversial, but I'm honestly not a fan of them. To me, they kind of have the same problem of LSP where they lack basic observational awareness where it feels like they ignore every plot going on around them or have their own plot to be insanely meandering and pointless. I will admit they do have a few really well-meaning and written scenes and episodes, plus they're not nearly as annoying, but for the most part their scenes and episodes are just silly and goofing around. But even then, the show, as it normally did, tried to make them more compelling and emotionally resonant, but yet also keep that goofy and childish nature to them. And I really want to understand more of them, their growth from just a background character to gain their own unique identity and personality, and their eventual standout episodes and importance in the show. And maybe even get to look past my original perception of them and make me appreciate them more. Surprisingly, BMO wasn't exactly created for the show, as apparently they were a robot character in a short Patrick McHale made and was redesigned to be the BMO we all know. And speaking of which, wow, what a perfect design! It's like the cutest sentient Game Boy ever. Like they looked like they were designed to be the perfect merchandise mascot for gaming. But to the episodes themselves, it's surprising that in Season 1, BMO couldn't even be considered a character. Sure, they had plenty of appearances, but as they were just cameos, they never spoke or did anything aside to just be a game console. As far as I get told, the first time he actually spoke was in the 21st episode of Season 1, Donnie, where his first words were just how pissed off he is at him.
I am incapable of emotion, but you are making me chafed.
Okay, side tangent, but what the hell was that episode? So, Donnie's harassing the Townsies, so Finn and Jake work to rehabilitate him to be nice. However, the town gets attacked by Y-wolves, not werewolves, totally different and never seen again after this, who explain that Donnie creates obnoxygen while being a jerk, which is the thing that keeps him at bay. But Donnie has reformed to be a nice guy, so Finn and Jake had to bully and harass him as he cries and then lashes out to be a jerk again and save the town, now back to being its bully. So like, what was the point of all of this? What's the moral here? You can't help bullies be better people or else life will be worse? It's okay to bully a person for the greater good? The hell is this?
Wait, I'm confused. What's the lesson here?
Okay, but it's not question time, it's analysis time. BMO's irrelevance in the first season is so weird considering how iconic he will soon be. Until he spoke, we barely got the idea he was sapient at all. For all we know, this is a game console the two bought off screen. In fact, we only hear his name once in Season 1 in Rainy Day Daydream, with probably his most important scene in it, perfectly replicating my brain whenever I try to get any amount of work done.
Who wants to play video game?
And ironically, this is one of his most iconic scenes to me for some reason, when he makes a new game, Conversation Parade.
Do you think about the stars in the sky? That is an interesting response.
And then he freaking dies. And Finn and Jake literally don't do anything to help him? Like, what the hell, guys? Running out of batteries like death for him, and they just boo him and ignore him as he lays there for the rest of the episode. Like, you guys are bored out of your mind. Is it that or just buy new batteries and play another game? Also, side note, but this does imply that BMO is able to create new games and likely has made every game we see further on himself, which is pretty interesting. But it's so weird to see at this point BMO is treated practically like an object where Finn and Jake don't seem to truly care about them aside from the entertainment they provide. And yeah, through pretty much all of Season 1, BMO's not a character, he's really just a glorified game console who rarely speaks, and it's so weird considering where they go from here. Season 2 was a better season for BMO, having more important scenes and being able to express and characterize themselves more. I guess the writers figure there's another sapient creature in the treehouse, need to properly use them as a character. Wish they did the same for Neptune though. They're almost characterized as like Finn and Jake's kid, or at least a kid that lives in their house, just kinda goofing around. But they get their first spotlight episode in the first art-style shift episode of the series, Guardians of the Sunshine, where BMO says he's able to transport people inside of his main brain game frame. Well, they'll be able to play in real life, but it's too dangerous. Yeah, what, this random video game console can transport people to the game world? The hell? Like, this is probably BMO's weirdest ability that's never mentioned again in the series. Did Mo program this? Dude's playing with fire. Actually, can you imagine if BMO could literally just imprison any foe into the game world with relative ease? Like, could he absorb the Lich? That would be awesome. But yeah, Finn and Jake ignore the warnings and go to Lyoko and soon find out the game world is truly more difficult and life-threatening since they're not truly players, only barely managing to escape with their lives by breaking the game and force themselves out of it, along with the enemies chasing them. Somehow. Though the game enemies say they want to kill BMO for imprisoning them for years. Which, okay, the way they word it make it sound like they were sapient and were aware of their own existence even when being programmed. Or even crazier, these were also living creatures from somewhere that got imprisoned in the games and then were used as enemy. Bro, Mo, what the f***? Luckily, Finn is somehow able to pull out the combo move in real life and eliminate all of them as BMO scolds him for not listening to them and ruining everything. And it's really weird because BMO never acts like this again. This is probably the biggest departure of what would later become BMO's main characterization, where he is rarely goofy and is much more mature and responsible than even Finn and Jake. It could be because this was a much more personal thing BMO had first-hand knowledge of, that they knew was a genuine big deal, but even then, he tries to kill Finn and Jake at the end anyway. BMO does get one other episode of importance in Season 2 in Video Makers, where Finn and Jake read a copyright disclaimer on an old movie and realize they can't show the footage. Oh my god, copyright is still gonna be an ass to people 1,000 years in the future. And like a genuine YouTuber, Finn and Jake are forced to make original content to try and get past the intense grip of the copyright system. Godspeed. However, the two of them can't decide on what direction they want to make their movie in, and it starts to break their friendship, which BMO is caught in the middle and is very concerned. Also, it's shown that BMO has full video editing software installed in despite being primarily a game console.
How much longer till you finish editing, BMO?
About 20 hours?
20 hours?
Wow, 20 hours for editing? That's way better than Premiere. Why can't I have BMO as my editor? Am I just gonna have to make a new BMO feature counter as I go on? But anyway, BMO does rearrange the footage to instead make a heartfelt music video reminding the two of their friendship and not to break it over this, having the episode end with a really sweet moment. How adorable. And yeah, this is another episode where BMO takes the emotional, mature route, being the one to help ground Finn and Jake again, this time when they're starting to split apart. It's almost like BMO this season is like the two's rational side, kind of being the one to rein them in these type of stories, which is an aspect that's never really used again after this season. It's pretty interesting if it's kind of inconsistent. Also, another thing to note is that BMO is oftentimes just a technology deus ex machina in these episodes. You want to have Finn and Jake in a video game? Well, BMO can just do that for this season with no explanation. Sure, BMO can play and edit films, why not? And even the start of Season 3 is also a camera, what can he do? Plus later in Holly Jolly Secrets, he's also a VHS tape player and an alarm clock. Man, BMO can do anything. But admittedly, Season 3 has basically nothing for BMO character-wise, with really having the most importance in the creeps, an episode that legitimately traumatized me as a kid, like Jesus Christ show.
Don't you mean you got him? Gross!
He's one of the suspects/victims of the prank, but has this really good line.
No, Jake. When bad things happen, I know you want to believe they are a joke. But sometimes, life is scary and dark. That's why we must find the light.
It's really weird because BMO does take this oddly mature and reasonable characterization in the earlier seasons, but it's pretty much non-existent going forward, so it's worth to consider. Well, I guess it's not just that, considering the finale Insanium has BMO watch over Finn, now working as a direct video webcam, and does this. Yeesh! Season 4, however, was a true emergence of BMO as the character we know him today, starting with having his own segment in 5 Sword Grables. Here, when BMO's alone in the house, he talks to the mirror and is shown to have an imaginary friend as alter ego named Football. BMO tells Football that he is not a robot, but a living boy, by doing things like brushing his teeth and cleaning himself and... Okay, yeah, moving on at this point. We see that BMO has an expressed desire to be a living thing, seemingly fascinated by living creatures and wanting to be a real boy. And it does contribute more to his imaginative and childlike side, imagining an alter ego to imagine that he is a real boy by trying their best to do normal things. And yeah, football does really become important for later. But soon we get BMO's first legitimate starring role in an episode, BMO Noir. Unlike before where BMO is just an important part to an episode, this is the first time he takes center stage. Finn can't find his sock as BMO tries to solve the case, imagining the trios as a classic noir detective story, also helped with the new palette change. I won't go into the story too much here since it's a usual noir detective story with the untrustworthy rat, Ben Patel, antagonistic police chief, and Squirrel who dies before they give away the truth. But it's another thing that now shows off BMO's intense imagination, not only reframing the whole incident, but also making new identities for what are really just random animals or objects in the house. He makes it this whole narrative to track down the missing sock, and kind of implies that it's all somewhat legitimate, but it's also up to interpretation if BMO just set this all up himself. And it's his childish look on life that defines it for practically the rest of the series. Season 5 gave us some more BMO content, with another Greybles episode continuing off what happened in the first, with BMO talking to football again in the mirror, where it seems they did a lot of the previous real boy thing, as BMO apparently has been teaching football how to be real too, but also tells them that they need to learn their manners, and then shows them how to properly use utensils, and most of all, how to drink tea properly, with your pinkies out, even if drinking it does nothing but make them short circuit. I wonder how much Finn and Jake have to prepare when he does things like this. But Finn and Jake do come back from their Greyble and want to be good boys, so BMO helps them out when they play a game to act like good boys. While not important relatively, it does reinforce the BMO football dynamic, which is now solidified as a consistent thing, as well as proving BMO is in his own world so much that he'll ignore him when he's being physically harmed. But soon, he gets another starring episode in BMO Lost. And honestly, I kind of forgot this episode existed. So BMO gets taken by a bird far away from the treehouse and needs to find their way back. And poor guy, his screen is cracked. Now he's a Mac. But soon meets a sapient living bubble. Just called Bubble. Insert digital circus joke here.
Pin down these memories. It haunts me.
Oh, Bubble, you always know how to make me say this exact sentence.
However, they get distracted by a mutant baby that BMO is really taken to and wants to raise, but has to outrun a perceived predator. BMO does need to put more focus on taking care of the baby than getting home, but ends up falling to a river hurrying towards a waterfall, where Bubble is seemingly able to accidentally Rube Goldberg a way out. Though BMO takes out his battery since they're wet and then pretty much dies for a whole day until the baby puts them back in. Which, like, if they did, there's a good chance BMO would never be turned on again and they would effectively die. That's pretty dark. BMO says he didn't have any dreams, which does imply that being without batteries is practically death and not sleep for him. But BMO gets terrified of a carnivore, but that's just the baby's real mom looking for them, and BMO tries to still keep them for some reason. The mom says he should be ashamed for walking off, leaving BMO dejected. BMO is sad for hours after losing the baby, but Bubble luckily leads them back to the treehouse. Bubble then tries to randomly propose and marry BMO, who accepts before Jake kills them.
Yeah, Bubble! Papa!
Okay, I guess Adventure Time does like to introduce characters and kill them off in more ways than I thought. But as BMO's crying, Bubble's voice is heard, and they say that they now know their real identity, Air, after they were popped. And still say that they will be together forever in a very, very creepy way, which BMO's of course ecstatic. Yeah, honestly, I'm not a fan of this episode, and it kind of highlights my problems with BMO. It's not bad, but it's just that nothing really happens. BMO's lost, finds a few companions, finds some obstacles, makes it back home, and no one really cares. Really, the relationship with Bubble was the most interesting thing, but it always didn't add much time for someone from BMO to talk to. But the thing that can never really make me care about BMO in narratives around them is that they basically have no observational awareness. BMO doesn't really seem to care about never getting home again or never seeing Finn and Jay again. Soon after, they're just happy again in the end and are much more concerned with trying to adopt the random baby they found, with very little acknowledgement to his actual end goal. And I don't know if the episode is trying to make me sympathize with BMO because I really can't.
Potato. Eat your potato, Ricky.
I just never like it when I have to be with a character who legitimately doesn't care about the situation they're in. They're one of the main reasons I don't like LSP or any episode around them, because I can't get invested and genuinely don't care about what they want. Granted, BMO is a lot less annoying than LSP, so they have that.
Answer me this.
Brad, he kissed me on the mouth, and I was like, wah, wah.
Listen, LSP, we gotta be careful.
Ooh, my dress.
Though, I guess it is interesting to consider that BMO imagined Bubble, again showing off his intense imagination, trying to make up a companion to be with them during this. But since Bubble has been seen interacting with things, it does kind of imply that, no, Bubble is actually real. There's also another filler episode in Shush, where Finn and Jake play a game where they can't speak and BMO is scared of things they're possessed. He also randomly gets a bunch of bikini babes to fight them, and honestly I feel this episode is some Riot's fantasy they snuck in. But okay, despite me saying that I don't get too into the BMO episodes, there is the true game changer in their character, and and their first genuine lore episode, and a personal favorite of mine, Be More. So BMO starts, I have no other way to say it, pleasing himself? Like, there's no avoiding the innuendo, like, come on! By deleting his old files. However, he accidentally deletes his core drivers, causing it to majorly malfunction where Finn and Jake find them. BMO needs to get new core drivers from the Mo factory where he was born, establishing that BMO is in a particular line of products of robots and computers like him. The factory is in the old Badlands, confirming that the Mo's are made pre-war. BMO also says that he can't let the Mo's repair him themselves, or they'll do a factory reset and get rid of all his memories, adding even more stakes. Finn and Jake have to disguise themselves as Mo's to get back security, which they luckily buy as they go on a tram tour operated by another Mo, as BMO tries to find where to install new drivers. BMO also likes about the factory itself, and used pre-war, and also gives me a lot of Fallout vibes if you replace him with Mr. Handy. But it also implies that the Mo's were really widespread before the Mushroom War. BMO also being that MoCo was indeed made pre-war and founded by Mo Maestro Giovanni, who was only loved by those he created. But Demo shows them the port bay as they break away and trespass, but can't find BMO's port as Demo calls security. The security bots fire but believe they exterminated them as they go to a break room to just talk. Again, why do they have these things that they don't eat or drink? I guess being insanely delusional is part of being a Mo. But the trio are sneaking in as an S-Mo, as BMO says to leak his universal port to their backs to hack into them. What, is BMO now a Pip-Boy? The hell? And it leads to more sussy visuals as they get the map and get aggroed by security, as it leads them to a mad tram car chase with them against security and Demo, which is pretty cool. But they break through the floors past BMO's port and into the lower level of the factory, where they get surrounded by security. But BMO cries out that he is BMO just in time, as the S-Mo hold their fire as a new voice calls to them. It's revealed to be a frail old man held by robotic medical staff, and he says he's the original Mo who created the factory and all the robots. He survived the war and prolonged his life, apparently by having so many cyber implants that only really his skin is human. My god, this is Fallout! Dude, Mr. House versus Mo, who would win? Mo is pretty good in nature and is ecstatic to see BMO again, and tries to fix them as Jake's worried about resetting his personality and memories. And Mo finally explains that he would never do that since BMO is one of a kind. He was made to be a playmate for Mo's son, something that could make endless games or other features, and could genuinely learn how to have fun and give love and take care of them. But Mo never actually started a family, so instead sent him out to the world in hopes that he would eventually find someone, hopefully find a family of his own and take care of someone else's kid.
It's very, very special. You see, I made BMO to be more.
Wow. BMO is happy to see his father as Mo finally shows him the rest of his family, with an entire Mo utopia underneath the factory. And holy crap, if there was ever an episode to reinforce Adventurire's reputation of randomly giving random characters ultra engaging lore and relations that legitimately make you feel, this is it. Okay, no, I remember you would be that one, but this is pretty great too. Yeah, if you couldn't tell, BMO had basically no lore or origin before this episode, and it's very late in Adventure to do this since it's season 5. But this is such amazing lore for BMO, not only just finally explaining what he is and where he came from as a massive line of robots spanning centuries, and even seeing their creator, but also knowing why they were created. It's so perfect that they were made to help out a child that never ended up existing and is capable of giving love, but not fulfilling that purpose anyway when they would wound up with Finn and Jake. It perfectly recontextualizes everything and makes their bond and their characters so much more compelling. I absolutely love it. And it helps goes against the usual BMO episode problem, where they fully realize the severity of the situation and then try to ignore or imagine their way around it, or focus more on adopting a random baby, allowing it to be much more interesting. This is probably one of my favorite BMO episodes. Now, BMO's rise in prominence does make it hard to go over their repeated appearances, so I'm gonna focus on the episodes that have them as the primary focus and only mention important moments from other episodes if needed. They got plenty more appearances in season 5 and 6, but I think the next really important BMO season is 7, where we get our next BMO episode, Football. And it starts out exactly like you would expect, with BMO talking to his reflection, aka Football. Football though wishes he could spend a day on the other side of the mirror, so BMO allows them doing some ceremony where they trade places, pushing against the mirror until they agree to trade back the next day. Football is amazed by the real world, introduces themselves to Finn and Jake, who pretty much immediately play along and consider them a new person. Makes me feel like this happened a lot. Do we get a weird look at the mirror where BMO's stuck in the bathroom where things are really off? And it does blur the lines between fiction and reality, since it's weird if BMO imagines this in the back of his mind. But Football says he's not going back and is leaving BMO behind forever. Football gets everyone in the house together to say that they are now Football from now on, and he's taking BMO's place. But it's clear this thing that BMO's being silly again and don't take it too seriously, and are kind of concerned about his mental state. But now Football sees BMO in every reflection and panics, running around and starts smashing them in desperation. But then Neptune wants to know what's going on, and Jesus, BMO, what the hell? He just freaking smashed Neptune for no reason. Like, I don't care what type of imaginary psychosis you got on, but you can't just assault people like that. Poor Neptune, he constantly gets pushed around and abused by people, and he literally does nothing to deserve it. Even Finn sees this happening right in front of him and doesn't even care. Dude, you need to step up as a father and discipline your freaking kids. I gotta say, BMO's treatment to Neptune is another thing I don't like about them because it's really a reoccurring thing.
We should hang out more. We're both robots.
No, Neptune, I am not like you.
Haha! Fly a tuxedo never have a mustache like that.
He's so cute now. I'm going to start treating him as an equal.
Can people stop bullying him for God's sake? And to prove my point again, Finn seems much more bothered that BMO smashed the bathroom mirror than nearly killing Neptune. We never see him again for the rest of the episode, so I'm just headcanon that they just left him there dying and continue to ignore him. Name a character who went through more pain than him. Football is even more worried about BMO coming back for him as he runs to the roof with Finn and Jake pursuing them, not knowing what's going on. Eventually they get so scared they fall into the pond and this reflection exchange switches the two back. But Football is happy to be here instead in the beautiful outside and apologizes for betraying them. And I'm sure he never apologized enough thereafter. Probably says, "It wasn't me, it was Football." And BMO says he's back. Also, I love this line here for some reason.
Put that traffic cone back on your head, young man.
And the episode ends. Yeah, this episode. Now, on the one hand, you can say this is a path to the Football BMO dynamic and really shows off his imagination and worldview, making his entire body-swapping plot for him to experience. Though its roots in Football seem to have existed as a way for BMO to vent their desires to be real, by having someone else to prove how real they are. But here it's evolved to practically another alter ego they fundamentally believe is real, and is trapped in a mirror world they are able to switch between from. Which, yeah, is pretty concerning that BMO is fully convinced that they are real, and everything they imagine is real, and they'll probably go on a rampage over it. It's to the point where imagination becomes dangerous delusion. But then again, the Evertime world does have a weird sense of imagination being real, like in Rainy Day Daydream. Which, did they ever explain that? Like, I would also just say that it was all in their heads, but they were able to physically stop the knife storm. Just chalk it up to season 1 randomness. But you can really show how much BMO is in his own little world when he literally made his own little world. But the next BMO episode in season 7 is another 2-parter Christmas episode, ironically enough. It's like the last time, it's considered a masterpiece of Adventure Time's writing. The more you mow, the more you know. My god, that's annoying to say. It's technically BMO's birthday, as they were created today, but they get a call from PB saying that she can't come since the new machine is busted.
Peppermint Butler spilled grape juice on my experimental weapon machine
And I was about to lay into her so hard because I swore she said experimental weapon machine, and I was gonna go crazy. But looking at the transcript, she said weather machine. So I guess we're off the hook for now. Even if accidentally causing an ecological disaster is still warranting some ire. But BMO said Mo himself is coming right after needlessly insulting Neptune.
He's so smart. I bet he could even fix Neptune.
What? What's wrong with me?
Again, BMO, you really make me hate you. But Mo arrives and he's not himself. He's another robot Mo. Mo says his body finally gave away as he's transferred his mind to a new robot body. My god, he really is Mr. House!
Aren't going to ramble on about the virtues of life out in the wastes, are you?
After the cake, Mo gives BMO their birthday surprise they promised, but it's a mission only for him. A rite of passage to go to the Mo factory, and then he'll be grown up. Finn and Jake are worried, but Mo says not to. Yeah, some red flags are going up. BMO wonders if Finn and Jake would miss them, but Mo says he'll be their BMO in their absence. Yeah. Well, at least Neptune's happy about it.
Hooray! Hooray!
Hooray!
Hooray!
BMO goes through the really atmospheric scene and talks to Air again, where he wonders about what Mo said about how he'll grow up and he'll experience new things and responsibilities, but is worried about how it will change him as a person and others around him. It's actually pretty poignant. Bravo, Adventure Time. Mo is very awkward with the others, with Jake thinking he just doesn't like old people. But he does actually tie it to the theme where he says that it might be that it makes him worry about becoming old himself. Mo wants to try and become their friends and wants to go out in the snow. Finn and Jake accidentally knock into Mo's sledding as he throws a tantrum saying they do what he wants, which they reluctantly agree. BMO makes it to the factory and finds Demo, who is soon seen as a chunk of his circuits gone before setting him down a trapdoor. And BMO somehow survives being completely grinded up. What the hell? Like, seriously, what happened here? How did I not die from that? Does BMO still have Yoshi's flutter jump ability? And only barely survives being crushed, left all alone. BMO doesn't know if this is part of the growing up mission.
When you are grown, you won't ever be able to tell if everything is going totally haywire, or maybe actually everything is perfectly fine.
Wow, I relate to that. But BMO's freed and falls into the chasm, winding in a junk room with a large cube thing who speaks to them. Once seeing BMO, they introduce themselves as Almo. Almo explains that it was peaceful in the factory for generations, with every Mo having a place in the love and affection they needed. But yesterday, a mysterious signal invaded every Mo to blindly jump into the trash compactor, which... wow, holy crap, that's a huge body count for the show. But luckily it didn't kill them, but unite them all as a hive mind, now known as Almo. Almo considers BMO to be the key for their escape, since they can only think logistically like a computer, but BMO's imagination can help them think outside of the box. But Finn and Jake are bored with Mo and want to get Nep to do some raps, which, wow, I think is the one time Nepta was actually noticed and wanted in an episode outside of his first appearance. That's amazing. But of course, the inevitable happens as Mo yells them to stop, which should have been on the Nepta being abused compilation, and Mo invites them to play a game, but they only have Hangman. And it turns out Mo's Hangman can only say Burgess Meredith, which is really a random person to reference. Does that mean they're canon to the Adventure Time universe? Then again, this episode is very Twilight Zone, so like, foreshadowing? Finn and Jake have enough and leave to Mo's dissatisfaction. Back to BMO, he's not sure if he can get them out of here, but Almo gives them their faith and says that they can use a vent to unlock the door on the other side, but have no way of reaching. BMO just has the idea to stack the rest of the tracks to elevate them, which amazes Almo. Okay, you say you have all the processing power of the entire Mo community, but you can't figure out the super simple solution? That's not imagination, that's common sense. BMO in the vents find some pretty creepy imagery and find a room which Almo explains belonged to Amo, the first Mo, who like BMO is one of a kind, but was made to receive love instead of give love, but was a slave to his programming and was obsessed with it. Almo also says that Mo himself went offline yesterday, but BMO said he's with Finn and Jake. Almo is worried and asks if he had prongs and had a cannon phaser, which BMO realizes under his wig, as Almo says he needs to hurry back as they're in grave danger. BMO isn't sure if he can carry them, but Almo reassures them. Finn and Jake come back to see Mo's legs apparently stolen by Nepter, who's knocked out, showing even more abuse Nepter goes through on a daily basis. Mo gets even more needy as Finn and Jake call him out that they can't love him like BMO, which drives him berserk and says kind of my feelings before I made this video.
BMO's trash.
But he takes off his disguise saying Mo's dead and reveals he was actually Amo. He then creates cannonballs to knock them out, demanding their love, before BMO comes and confronts them carrying Almo. Amo does this thing before running off as BMO chases, being caught on a cliff edge. Amo spills the being, saying he returned from a pilgrimage to confront Mo after discovering terrible things about themselves. However, as he arrived, death was finally coming for Mo, weirdly without his medical staff, and gives him his memory drive back up and pleads to fulfill his last wish to send his mind into space to be with the cosmos forever before finally dying. However, Amo refused to in spite, since he also didn't think that they loved him. Amo was jealous of BMO's loving family and wanted to replace him. BMO rushed to avenge his father and get the drive, as Amo attacks continually, breaking him as he keeps attacking until BMO lands onto his cannon mid-fire as the recoil sends Amo off the cliff to his death. Like, he's really dead. There's so much death in this episode. The others soon come with Almo, asking if BMO would come back to be the leader of the factory. But BMO says,
I don't think I can. I'm not grown up, or I'm too grown up now. I think I just killed someone.
And leads to maybe the most poignant moment in the episode. BMO considers himself grown up, but multiple voices wonder if he is actually grown up, that Mo's gone and can't teach him anything else that's not already in his programming. but also that Amo went evil because of his programming. It's a compelling moment and a great scene for BMO having actual introspection about his characterization. And I gotta ruin that right now. But BMO is confident in themselves that they can trust Mo and themselves since they're unique and anything outside of their programming. BMO reels back from how messy a day it's been before going to sleep, as we end with one last memory from Mo that BMO didn't get to see.
I'm gonna miss you too, BMO. I feel so very, very proud of you.
Man, what an episode. I can definitely see how people consider it to be among some of Adventure Time's best. Admittedly though, it didn't quite reach that level to me, mostly because of my problem with BMO as a character, but that's just a me thing. It's definitely BMO's most compelling and interesting solo episode in the show. It has a great narrative, with a ton of interesting twists and a super dark and atmospheric feeling. But beyond, it is truly a coming-of-age story to a character who felt like they would never get one. Adventure Time has done a few of these, most obviously in Lemon Hope, but BMO's been characterized as a complete kid for seasons now, and it's interesting to see his reactions to the vague concept of growing up. He doesn't know if he wants to or what it even entails, he just knows he won't be the same person regardless. BMO's childishness being such a huge part of his character, it makes sense on why he would be so hung up on the concept. But in the end, he still couldn't figure out what growing up really is, and he felt like he got more mature after his experience. But he has enough faith in himself that he'll make the right decisions in the future, since he's not defined by his programming unlike Amo. And yeah, Amo was the perfect antagonist, because he never truly grew up. Both of them are childish, but BMO uses childishness to bring joy to other people, for the most part, and embodies the best aspects of childhood, while Amo is a whiny brat demanding constant attention and love and throwing tantrums and acting out when he doesn't get what he wants. He's needy, spiteful, has a complete with me or against me mentality, where he pretty much kills multiple people without a second thought, but still demands unconditional love.
People in my life don't love me. I'll obliterate y'all.
And it's known that he did get that love, but it would never be enough for him. He starts the episode promising BMO that they'll know what it's like to be growing up when he doesn't even know what that means at all. And the fact that BMO had legitimate contemplation and hesitation after accidentally killing them shows he's much more grown up than Amo will ever be. And I definitely think it's BMO's strongest episode, and I think it's amazing. Though it's kinda sad the next main BMO episode doesn't really acknowledge what he went through in Angel Face, where BMO wants to make a whole western fantasy adventure for himself, but this time wants everyone else in on it and is getting Finn and Jake to join in by bribing them with strangely sentient sandwiches. They're sentient, not sapient, so it's not too bad. Also, BMO's apparently a really good cook.
You didn't even try.
I did try. Horses are hard.
Is that a joke on how horses are notoriously hard to draw? BMO's going all big iron to try and catch an outlaw in his roleplay, who's now played by Finn. But a familiar face is also after them. Yeah, Meow unexplainably got huge since their last appearance 4 seasons ago. Maybe they shrunk themselves for the scheme? But hey, nice to bring them back now as a bounty hunter after failing the assassin's test. They go to a small box town that BMO trashes, revealing Nepta was the one who made it and it took him 3 months to make for a Finn cake.
Spent the last 3 months building all of this.
Oh, that's where you've been?
Wait, he's been gone for 3 months now and none of you guys care to check on him? What the hell? He is the most neglected character in existence. And more Nepta abuse. They go after Finn, but Meow's already captured them thinking the bounty was real and was gonna get revenge on the duo after. And so the adventure becomes genuine as BMO apparently had a real gun all this time.
A real gun all this time?
I am old enough to vote.
As Meow switched her weaponry to snake blowgun. Seeing BMO packing heat feels wrong. But BMO frees Finn before he runs out of ammo, and they knock out and arrest Meow. And yeah, that's about it. There's really not much in it, it's just BMO LARPing as a cowboy, but I mean it's actually some Nepta and the return of Meow. I wonder if this is BMO relapsing into his childish nature after his epiphany in the previous episode, where he's worried of being too mature and wants to go on an adventure to retain his childhood. It could be an interesting way to see it. Just a minor thing, but in season 8 in the episode Don't Look, Finn gets cursed with magical hermit eyes that force him to magically turn whoever he sees into a representation of how he sees them. In BMO he sees them as a literal angel, as they don't question it and go flying. BMO is a sweet little angel.
BMO? BMO!
Yeah, not buying it. Also, Finn literally sees Neptar as a microwave, so he's clearly playing favorites. No wonder he turned to Martin. BMO, though, gets to join the cast in the Islands miniseries, where he snuck aboard with Finn, Jake, and Susan to try and find where all the humans went. But they all got separated and are trying to fight each other, where Finn and Jake find an old human settlement, and BMO with VR goggles. Where we soon see that all the humans in this island now live in freaking VR chat, which is honestly a more horrible fate than anything. I trade Tranquility Lane over this. God, this video's gonna be nothing but Fallout references, isn't it? But they start getting harassed by some server jerks in Kalamad, who then finds them the problem and opts for immediately banning them. Wow, it's your average Discord server experience. But it turns out BMO is summoned the new moderator with an avatar that deeply disturbs me.
This super skid costs 15 million crypto coins.
Wait a minute, VR chat existence as microtransactions? Get me the hell out of here! BMO is able to track down where Susan went, but refuses to leave his new role as mod he got like at most a day ago. And they can't take off the goggles. I refuse to make a Sword Art Online joke. It does bring up something interesting, that as a computer he is more comfortable in the digital world than the real one, which is an interesting thought. But Jake shuts it off and all the three humans can't deal with their own reality, all emaciated and zombie-like, as Finn says to turn it back on for everyone and BMO. BMO is able to reactivate the virtual reality, with the humans complacent in their virtual fantasy as their real bodies waste away. Kind of messed up morally, but what's you gonna do? So, wait, what about the guys who are banned? Are they unable to go back in and have to wander the island as human huts until they quickly die? Bro, messed up. Jake pleads for them not to go back, which BMO eventually does since he missed them so much. How heartwarming. Unfortunately, the next scene ruins it.
And I just need to...
Now, this episode didn't have too much, and it's kind of one of the reasons I'm not a fan of this miniseries, since like half of it feels pointless. The VR world is too abstract to get a good understanding of it, even if it is very Adventure Time, and the execution kind of feels questionable. But it did actually have some interesting insights on BMO's character as a machine in a virtual world, and how he feels he belongs, and reinforcing his bond with Finn and Jake. But yeah, I think it doesn't hold a candle to the episodes after of the miniseries that are complete emotional gut punch and masterpieces of Adventure Time storytelling. Before the Elementa saga, immediately after we get some insights on BMO's mind through his trippy dreams by Nightmare Princess. It also proves that BMO can actually dream, which is worth to think about. And I don't want to go into the interpretations of BMO's dreams, as that would take way too long, but it is interesting how Amo still has a part of BMO's nightmares, showing that their experience was something that truly terrified them, and became their representation of evil. But in the Elemental saga, BMO quickly gets assimilated to the candy element as the first victim, so he's out until it's over. BMO only has one more episode to himself for the finale, in Always BMO Closing, where BMO is going to be a door-to-door salesman, randomly. He's gonna sell random crap and clearly doesn't know what he's doing. Also, asking is they're helping him for some reason. Also, apparently, Treechoice is an aspiring novelist, which I completely skipped over in her video. Also, she seemed to have given away all of her money for a stick. Maybe it's for the Cool Stick subreddit. But BMO gets lost as they stumble upon the lair of a soon-to-be very familiar person, Gumbald. Seemingly wants to murder them until BMO said he has a bag of Finn's baby teeth he isn't supposed to have, which causes him to lighten up and gladly buy it once he confirms that it is indeed Finn's teeth in exchange for a silver goblet. Finn, though, is mad that BMO sold his baby teeth, but Jake says they can get it back since they're not some mad scientist.
The mad scientist, was he?
Well,
And then they're soon attacked by an army of baby Finns made out of teeth. But they're really easily defeated once BMO sells them some hammers, with Gumball remarking that adult teeth would have been much more effective. But BMO and Ice King do show mutual respect for each other, as Finn says they're never doing this again. So yeah, this was really pointless. I've noticed that BMO episodes are usually either some random adventure with BMO's imagination going to overdrive with no real plot, or thrust into a brutal emotional story arc with no in between, but this was really the former. The only thing we get is foreshadowing of Gumball, which isn't too important, and BMO and Ice King have a new dynamic, but that's it. But it's finale time. In a surprising turn, BMO was actually the framing device, as 1,000 years in the future, he's still alive, and now takes the title of the King of Ooh. And now is atop Mount Cragdor, where the Enchiridion was once held in, a nice callback to the first episode produced for the series. Shermie and Beth find Finn's old robotic arm, and go to see BMO to get answers on who it belonged to. BMO expected them, but as they start breaking his treasures and callbacks to some of the other episodes, he wants to kick them out, but changes his mind when seeing the arm saying it belonged to his best friend.
Belonged to my best friend. Fred. Not Fred. His name was... Phil.
Which, wow, the fact that BMO eventually will forget Finn's name is super heartbreaking. But he recalls the Great Gum War. However, BMO was not actually there in the fight, which is confusing how he could tell the story if he wasn't even there. However, once Golb arrives, he mutates Gumball's army and a Gumball Guardian into chaos abominations that start going on a rampage in Ooh, which no one can stop. Even when Jake tries to fight, he's no match, as one completely destroys the treehouse and their home with BMO inside of it. Jake is traumatized seeing their home completely demolished and panics. But BMO's still alive with a cracked face for like the third time in this video and tries to console Jake and sing a beautiful song, Time Adventure.
Time is an illusion that helps things make sense. So we are always living in the present tense.
The abomination notices and tries to kill them, but can't touch them. And it turns out that singing is harmony, and as beings of chaos, it is the one thing that can harm the abominations and Golb, as every other character joining on the song and is able to weaken them. It's funny how it was BMO's whimsy and imagination to sing a song in a horrific, unwinnable situation was the thing that allowed them to be saved at all and no fighting chance. In a way, it's a perfect affirmation of BMO's childish view on the world, as the conflict ends the way it ends. Hey, wait a minute, why'd they bring Nepter here? BMO gets to stay at home, but no, take the pie robot to the battlefield.
Oh, I see.
But BMO finishes their story as he gets the two to leave, with the story eventually inspiring them to find the sword, leading up to the ending montage, with the final ending of BMO calling back to the Mo you know, with he and help of Banana Man and Almo finally fulfilling his creator's wishes and sending his memories and mind to space. It's really touching. What a perfect way to end the series with BMO. His creativity and imagination were pivotal for the victory, showing he still has a place in Ooh, carrying on the legacy and memory of his friend, and still ending it to wrap up the loose ends in the Mo plotline and bring it full circle. It's great. But as we all know, it's not the end for BMO, as no one this marketable can go without a Distant Land episode. So I really don't have time to go through an entire movie plot in great detail, but I'll try to be quick. It opens with BMO inexplicably tasked with terraforming Mars, which doesn't make sense for dozens of reasons. He meets a space drone who takes him to a massive space satellite / community called the Drift, dealing with a lot of outages and resource shortages. BMO is found by a scavenger bunny girl named Y4 who wants to try and sell BMO for parts, but gets attached to them as BMO practically finds himself as the Drift's sheriff, dealing with the troubles in the Drift. They are taken by Mr. M, who's heavily implied to be Finn's father, to see the leader Hugo, who can't find anything useful in BMO, but he's using the Genesis Crystal inside the Jungle Pod, which has become over-mutated and hostile, which I absolutely love. And even though they're inorganic, they are nearly destroyed multiple times, but manage to get the crystal. But Y4, now named Y5, find out that Mr. M and Hugo are stealing the pod's resources and fleeing the Drift, as BMO is destroyed giving them the crystal. Y5 manages to repair BMO by taking him to an older mole-like robot who explains Hugo's origin as a Mushroom War survivor taken by the Drift and continues to sabotage it in secret as BMO is reactivated and proves Hugo's crimes as the residents fight back over Hugo who can drain it, and somewhat saves the Drift as the residents try and preserve their few resources to rebuild as BMO leaves for some reason, riding on a space lorry all the way to Earth. And then revealing this was actually all a prequel as he first meets young Finn and Jake, which completely ruins the continuity, honestly. So like, remember when most
I sent BMO off into the world alone. You could find a family alone. Maybe even find somebody else's little boy to take care of.
And by that, I mean I'm sending him to outer space to colonize Mars that's already colonized. Now, honestly, it's not a bad special, and it's a cool change from the Adventuretime universe, but it does highlight some of my problems with BMO. As I said, I can't really get into a character who feels like they don't actually care or notice about what's going on around them. BMO in this still plays like he's in some fantasy adventure, pretty much like all the other episodes he's in, but it doesn't actually feel like he's aware or cares about the plot around him, making it very disconnected. Like, I didn't feel this was BMO's story. I felt like there was a plot going on and BMO just happened to be there and help out a few times. Again, it might just be me, but I had trouble getting invested in a story where it feels like the main character isn't invested in it. But it's still a decent and imaginative watch, but it seriously doesn't hold a candle to the emotional roller coasters of Obsidian and especially Together Again. So better than Peppermint Butler. Now, we have one more story with BMO in the Fiona and Cake series. Unfortunately, they didn't get a counterpart in the world, they're just an alarm clock. Which, come on, you could have done so much more, you can't just do that to a significant character. But y'all know what I'm talking about. The episode Jerry. To make a long story short, Simon, Fiona, and Cake are traveling through different dimensions to find a working ice crown so Fiona and Cake's world can be magical again. But their dimensional remote breaks, so they're stranded in a weird desert that's devoid of all life. In between, the episode is dispersed with a super emotional story of how Simon met Betty, but I hate to focus back on the topic. And in the entirety of their travels, when going into the dead treehouse, they find the only living being left, BMO. BMO still treats things like a game, unaware of the reality all around him, but even admits that he hasn't seen football in a long time. The only person he says is alive is his friend Jerry. BMO directs him to the Ice Kingdom, which is all melted, and like in Holly Jolly Secrets, plays Ice King tapes with a disturbing last-second image of him as a skeleton. And then he says he can bring the Princess Bubblegum to repair the remote, and we see even the Candy King is completely dead, and not a single inhabitant is it's decaying. And like with football, he's pretending to be here, acting like nothing's wrong. And I should just say it, but later it's shown that Jerry is actually the Lich, as the only other being left. And it's highly implied that this is the universe that resulted when the Lich wished for extinction of all life back in season 5. And since Prisma's wishes were retconned to make a new universe, this one was still kept after Jake undid it. You can consider it the original Ooh. We see it happen. Just one moment. No theatrics, no apocalypse, just the instant death of everything. And BMO being a robot was spared, as he doesn't know why everything and everyone is dead around him.
One day, everyone was a skeleton. Then, Jerry came.
And for just a human-like robot who was meant to give love, the horrific reality of being all alone with nothing is truly devastating. And it completely reframes BMO's optimistic outlook and imagination as a massive coping mechanism. He pretends like everything's okay and it's all a game, and that the eldritch horror that caused all this is a friend. This is the only thing left. I said that BMO dissociated from his situation made me really hard to care about his episodes, but this execution makes it absolutely heartbreaking. Even more since BMO doesn't hesitate to risk his own life to help people he barely knows, but uses his own heart to reboot the remote. My god, that hurt! In distant lands, you know they're not really gonna kill BMO off. But here, they pull no punches. He's dead. And along with him, practically the only hope left in this dimension. What makes it worse is the subtext that BMO had nothing more to live for. Everyone else is dead. He has no one left. And soon he's running out of batteries anyway. So when he had no purpose and his life is going to end anyway, he sacrificed his life to at least help out people one more time. It's so heartbreaking that even I am deeply moved by it. And Simon sends the best that they hold a legitimate funeral for him.
BMO chose to make the ultimate sacrifice for people he barely knew. Farewell, you little miracle.
BMO's characterization is truly a testament to how great and fantastic Adventure writing and characters can be. BMO has definitely gone through a roller coaster of characterization in the show. I can't believe BMO had only like 3 lines and basically no relevance in the first season. And then in season 2 had more dominant scenes and moments with the duo he lives with, where he largely takes a more mature and responsible role as like the voice of reason. It wasn't until about season 4 where his characterization got cemented as a practical child with an overactive imagination that everyone loves. I find this interesting where it seems that BMO was just an afterthought in season 1, where the writers in 2 wanted to expand upon the idea and give a few technology-based plots and roles. And also figured to make him the person to rationalize out the silliness of Finn and Jake in their lives as a robot, and possibly as the show got more serious, they decided to hold back on the characterization, and instead make them very immature and childish to have a new plot and character potential. They gave them a few solo adventures, but I didn't think they really wanted to utilize the idea and answer where he came from, leading to the fantastic episode Be More, when he finally had a concrete origin that made him so much more compelling. BMO has been largely characterized by his naivety and undying sense of wonder, which has made him very lovable to the crew and the fan. But it's nice that they also use the aspects and how he represents childhood to tell really great, fantastic, and compelling stories like The More You Know, and Jerry, showing that you can't take even a character who seems like nothing can bother them and tell super emotional and intriguing storylines. And I did give my gripes on BMO. A lot of times when he has the focus, the plots are too meandering and unsatisfying, since it's almost always about him making up some fantasy adventure you can't really get invested in, that's cute at best but mostly forgettable. but some episodes use BMO's childishness to tell amazing stories about maturity, purpose, family, belonging, and goodwill. When Adventure Time really makes you want to care and tell a great story, it is more than able to, and the fact they told multiple with BMO truly highlights that Adventure Time can really make any character compelling if they want to. And I came out of this with a much greater respect for BMO than I did coming into it. I still feel this way about his episodes, but now I found BMO to be a much more interesting and compelling character as a lens through the mindset of wonder dealing with the world. And it's so fitting how Adventure Time truly did make this character be more. I wouldn't have it any other way. Okay, except this, I'm still mad at this. What the hell, dude?
BMO? BMO! BMO! Why?
Hey, wait, did I go through an Adventure Time analysis video without slandering PB? Look, she peeled off his face, you monster!